Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro Review. In this account, we talk about technology, gadget, marketing, and whatever we want. So let's get started. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro is one of the best phone bargains of the last 12 months. It gets so close to the day-to-day experience of a $1,000/£1,000 phone you'd never guess it costs $279, £249, roughly $360 Australian. There's one missing feature that may put you off: 5G. This is a 4G phone. It will always be a 4G phone, so make sure you're happy with lower speed mobile internet for the duration of your ownership. The Redmi Note 10 Pro has a large 120Hz OLED screen. Its Snapdragon 732G brings the goods for gaming, and the phone has some of the best speakers we've heard at the price. You get a solid 108MP camera. And while you shouldn't put too much faith in that ultra-high megapixel count, it produces nice photos and has access to a good night mode. There's also a highly unusual, and unusually good, macro camera. Most budget phone macro cameras are barely worth using. This one is great for nature photography. The Redmi Note 10 Pro's battery also lasts a long time, even if you use the 120Hz screen mode for smoother scrolling. There are mountains of substance here, and even the build quality gets more attention than we'd expect. The Redmi Note 10 Pro has a Gorilla Glass back, not the plastic we now see even in alarmingly expensive Android phones. The strongest competition at the price includes the Xiaomi Poco X3 NFC from the same company, which is heavier, thicker and has an LCD screen rather than an OLED. It's a little less fancy, but is also a great buy. Or there's the Realm X50 5G, which you should buy instead if you want 5G. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro was announced in March 2021, and it's available in the UK now. You'll also be able to buy this handset in the US, but an exact release date hasn't yet been revealed. It starts at $279, £249, around $360 Australian, for the Redmi Note 10 Pro with 6GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. We are reviewing the 128GB, 6GB version, but this only costs a little more at $299, £269, roughly $390 Australian. There's also a version which keeps the storage at 128GB but ups the RAM to 8GB, for $329, approximately £235, $425 Australian. That seems to be exclusive to the US. This may not seem hugely cheap for a 4G phone. If you really want 5G, you may want to stop reading now. But the Redmi Note 10 Pro makes up for it in other areas. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro has a mix of high-end and low-end design traits. It's a blend we like a lot. For example, you get a headphone jack, like cheap phones. But the Redmi Note 10 Pro's back is lightly curved Gorilla Glass, not the plastic many far more expensive phones use today. The only obvious sign that the Redmi Note 10 Pro is an affordable phone is that its sides are plastic rather than metal. Redmi's big design sell here isn't actually the glass back, though, but how techy the rear camera array looks. The main lens is given its own shiny silver surround, and the two-level contouring is there to make the camera seem even more accomplished than it is. We end up with a phone that could easily be mistaken for one that costs $700, not $279. Sure, that camera bump isn't pretty as such, but it doesn't look cheap. More substantive basics are on point too. The Redmi Note 10 Pro isn't too thick at 8.1mm, and its sub 200 grams weight, 193 grams, is not distractingly high. You'd guess it cost a lot more. Well, unless you're a phone aficionado who knows quite how aggressively priced phones from brands like Redmi and Realme are. The rear on our Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro review sample has a pleasant satin finish that glows silver when it catches the light. And if that seems too plain, you can get it in off-white and orange colors too. Given the price, we're big fans of the Redmi Note 10 Pro's hardware design. However, if you intend to use it case-free, the plastic side buttons are a bit of a budget giveaway. The Redmi Note 10 Pro uses a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, not an in-screen one, but it's fast and reliable. There's also an IR blaster on the top, used by the Mi Remote app to let the phone act as a universal remote. Onto a feature you won't only need in emergencies: the speakers. The Redmi Note 10 Pros are excellent for a cheaper phone. They are loud, offer some bass, and there are two drivers. This maxes out the stereo sound field and makes sure you won't block it when playing a game. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro screen is also exemplary. It's a large 6.67-inch 1080 by 2400 OLED display with a 120Hz panel. It offers good sharpness, excellent contrast, deep color, and enough space to come across as a display made for video and gaming. The OLED panel is also a great showcase for the high refresh rate. 120Hz means the image is refreshed at twice the standard rate, and it makes your app drawer scroll by much more smoothly than it would in most other affordable phones. Cheap high refresh rate phones are nothing new, but a few of the LCD examples have slight but noticeable trails with high contrast scrolling, reducing the perceived benefit. This is a wide color gamut screen that supports HDR10 video, has adjustable color, and even fairly high maximum brightness. The Redmi Note 10 Pro will hit around 400 nits at maximum brightness indoors, but ramps the display up to 594 nits in bright conditions, according to our colorimeter. We had no issues composing photos with this screen on a bright day. Sure, phones like the iPhone 12 Pro Max and Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra have double the brightness. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro also has exactly the sort of chipset we'd hope for in a phone of this class. It's the Snapdragon 732G, a mid-range processor with some optimizations for gaming, which boils down to a higher clock graphics section. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro is a great gaming phone. And while rivals with Snapdragon 750G and 765G chipsets have slightly more gaming power, there's a solid argument that this is the best gaming phone at the price thanks to its excellent speakers and OLED screen. We can't overstress how impressive the Redmi Note 10 Pro's lack of basic cuts are. For example, it has a generous 6GB of fast LPDDR4X RAM, and the 128GB of storage is fast too. There's also a model with 8GB, and it reads at 512MB per second. This is SATA SSD style performance, and no doubt contributes to game load speeds similar to those of a high-end mobile. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro has a 108MP f/1.9 primary camera sensor. However, the part of this phone's camera array that stands out the most is something else, the 5MP f/2.4 telemacro. Many phones at this level have macro cameras. Almost all of them are undiluted trash, 2MP sensors with rubbish lenses that take photos that don't even hold up on the phone's own screen. The Redmi Note 10 Pro's macro has had actual effort put into its design. And getting the opportunity to use qualified superlatives about a $279 phone is in itself remarkable. Zoom shots, taken using the Redmi Note 10 Pro's 2x preset, rely on a digital crop of the 108MP sensor instead. This sensor uses 9-in-1 pixel binning, which means the information from 9 pixels on the sensor is used to make 1 pixel in the final image. It's not the same as, for example, a true ultra-high resolution DSLR sensor, so zoomed images are not spectacularly detailed. That said, 2x images are pretty convincing and the processing does bring out more detail in some fine-knit patterns than you see in a crop of a standard 12MP shot. The Redmi Note 10 Pro's night mode is also up there with the very best in this category. Shoot using the auto mode and very dark areas look near black. The night mode genuinely reveals new data in the shadows. We tried to recreate the effect by fiddling with an auto mode low light shot in Photoshop and only uncovered a hellscape of noise and sensor errors. This night mode also has a minimal softening effect. It's a great low light result at such a low price. The Redmi Note 10 Pro also has an ultra-wide camera with an 8MP f/2.2 Sony IMX355 sensor. This was used as the selfie camera on the Pixel 3. It's probably the least interesting picture-taking camera on the phone, and is the one we've used least. Dynamic range and detail aren't on the same level as the primary camera. And software optimizations are slightly lacking too. The Redmi team could have fixed some of the occasional blown highlights with better multi-exposure techniques, and you can't use the night mode with the ultra-wide camera. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro has a 5,020 mAh battery, which seems a fairly high capacity for an affordable phone this slim. Fire up the Redmi Note 10 Pro for the first time and it will revert to its 60Hz display refresh rate, just half of its maximum. This is likely to give the best first impression of battery life, as higher refresh rates consume more power. You can expect 35 to 45% charge left by midnight after a moderate day's use. Companies like Xiaomi tend to achieve this sort of long battery life with very tight controls over background processes. And when these are too invasive, they can become annoying, closing audio apps, and delaying notifications.